Lozano, invitado especial Enrique Morones. Presentado por Brookdale Community College. Sansone Junior Latino.
This month we celebrate what makes us unique as Hispanics. We share our culture, traditions, music, food, family, language, but the most important thing we celebrate this month is all the achievements and the hard work and dedication of our community to build a better future for your families. Each year from September 15 to October 15, we celebrate our Hispanic heritage. Days are coincide with the National Independence Day of Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Mexico, and Chile. Here in the United States, more than 57 million people identify as Hispanics. That is another reason to celebrate the achievements of our community. To Sello Latino media for more than 15 years are contributing to maintain and promote the best of our culture in New Jersey. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month. Thank you. Next we have a group from Mexico. If you guys ready? And this group is a phenomenon because they have been creating beautiful dances from Mexico and Central America to keep in the young generations, the traditions.
Muchísimas gracias, gracias Virgilio a tu Sello Latino por siempre impulsar y dedicar a nuestras costumbres y tradiciones y cultura. Muchísimas gracias.
Gracias, Lucía.
Paul Sansone, Sansone Junior Auto Mall. Brenda Reyes, College Achieve Asbury Park.
Born in San Diego, to Mexican parents who instilled in him a deep love for Mexico, spiritual faith, and social justice. He is driven by the passage for I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. Matthew 25:35. Enrique has a history of firsts. In 1998, he was the first person to be granted dual citizenship with Mexico.
whatever you need. And I go, my nephew's in high school. And he went to the same high school I went, which is an all-boys Catholic high school in San Diego, St. Augustine. So I said, hey, when you go back to Saints, tell all your buddies that you're in a movie with, because it was true, it was the same Little Ronstadt effect film. But tell all your buddies that you're in a movie with Sharon Stone. And they go, who's Sharon Stone? The same two people that knew Little Ronstadt, or three people, know who Sharon Stone is. But anyways, I'm going, what's going on? So what's going on is that I'm getting old. But so I retired from Border Angels, focused on Gente Unida. And this year our focus is the migrant children. Because the society is judged on how we treat our children. And regardless of how you feel about the issues, the children are not at fault. We have seen those horrible images, all of us have seen them on the news in the last couple of years or so, with the unethical smugglers dropping children over the wall or leaving them in the desert with notes on. That's unbelievable. It is just inhumane. All of us saw what happened just less than 2 weeks ago with the Border Patrol whipping Haitians on the Texas-Mexican border. That's inhumane. We have a big campaign. I come from professional baseball. And we have a campaign that I started when George Bush was governor, before he was president. And because when he was governor, he was also the owner of a baseball team. So I met with him and I said, Governor Bush, it is so sad that you own a team called the Texas Rangers. You must know who the Rangers are. And you try to play it off, and I go, no, the Rangers were vigilantes that used to round up Mexicans, like me, and Mexican Americans, and lynch them. Lynching hundreds of people, hundreds. And I go, you call your baseball team the Rangers? So since then, I've been trying to change the name. And then the last couple of years, because of the tragedy with George Floyd and other people, names have been changed. The Washington football team finally changed its name. The Cleveland baseball team changes its name next year. Statues have come down of Confederates and so forth, of Christopher Columbus. And I know that some people maybe don't agree with those things, but what I always say is the person that determines if it's racist or not is not the person that makes the statement. It's the person that's on the receiving end. They're the ones that determine, that was racist. That's very offensive. We just had an incident in San Diego, which I don't know if you saw it out here, but it made international news. There was a basketball championship game in San Diego in a very privileged area. It's an island right off the coast there called Coronado. And what happened was the championship game was with a team from Escondido, and I know the owner of the restaurant used to live in Escondido, and that team is called Orange Glen, and Coronado, which is predominantly upper income white kids. And what happened was it was a very close game and Coronado won. That's fine and dandy, but what wasn't fine and dandy was that during the game they were yelling racial slurs at the team, of mainly Latino players. They were throwing tortillas at the kids. Throwing tortillas. Very racist. They contacted me afterwards and I was outraged. I go, that was very racist, and we cannot be silent, because when we're silent about issues, it's almost like you agree, right? Martin Luther King taught us that you're always going to know who's with you on issues, and you're always going to not be surprised at some of the people against you. But the people that will surprise you are the people that you figured were on your side, and they remained silent when things were happening, the unjust things. So what I did was I held a press conference in front of Coronado High School. And I made sure we had all communities represented. And I said, this cannot be tolerated. And I talked to CIF. CIF is the ruling body for sports in California. And I said, that coach needs to be fired. The championship should be taken away, etc. And we were successful. We were successful in that. And to the credit of the kids from Orange Glen, they never said they wanted the trophy. They just said they should not have the trophy. And that's what happened. And we've had other incidents since in California, just like you've had here in New Jersey and in New York. When I was coming over here, I was talking to somebody about a case. Vigilio, like his cousin, they're from Ecuador. And I said, yeah, I remember there was a very famous case of an Ecuadorian man here in New York. Pechagui, I think is the name of the town. Pechagui or something like that. Anyways, his name was Marcelo Lucero. Marcelo Lucero was a young man that was beat up and killed by 6 young people, white kids, just because he was Latino. They beat him up and they killed him. And they were going to get away with it. But people like me and others, we came here, we had a vigil, we brought a lot of attention to the issue, and the kids were arrested. The kids were arrested. They beat up and killed Marcelo Lucero. And I remember at the church where the vigil was held, his mom and his sister flew up from Ecuador. And they couldn't believe that, that we had driven from San Diego to come here. And that, we weren't Ecuadorians, but who cares what you are? You're a human being. You got to treat people with dignity and respect. And that case, Marcelo Lucero, you can look it up, it's a very famous case. It was only 2 months within another case that was in Philadelphia, or just outside of Philadelphia, and that was Luis Ramirez. Luis Ramirez was a young Mexican man who was married to an Anglo woman. I don't know if they were married, but there were a couple that had kids. They were walking down the street of this little town, and same thing. Some kids heard him, started yelling and screaming at him, and they killed him. They killed him right in front of his partner and his children. Same type of thing. They were going to get away with it. However, we brought attention to the issue. We held a vigil. In both those cases, those kids are still in jail. Because we got to make sure that justice prevails. When people ask, like I was talking with a few of you earlier, and we didn't get to this point, but it's something that often comes up. They'll say something like, yeah, but this country is a country that's a country of rule of laws. You've heard that. And my response is, what country in the world is not a country of rule of laws? If there was ever a country of rule of laws, it was Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany definitely was a country of rule of laws. But there were bad laws. North Korea today is a country of rule of laws. But they're bad laws. So saying you're a country of rule of laws means nothing. The thing is that there's, we know the difference between good and bad. And although that's been distorted in the last few years with this crazy, philosophy of some people, QAnon, and this, it is just absolutely insane how people can actually believe that. But there's a cult mentality. And even though I believe that most of those people realize that those things are not true, that Hillary Clinton is not a pedophile, that there's no ring of people underneath a pizza place someplace prostituting children. I mean, that is really, that Joe Biden is a clone. I mean, that's just insane. But there's actually people that believe that. And what happens is what happened on January 6th. That you saw the worst of the American spirit on January 6th. When you saw those people get into the Capitol building, Confederate flags, hitting law officers, killing people, unacceptable. And we're the people that are going to make the change. Each one of us makes a big difference. One of the stories I often share was when I went to the University of San Diego, the Catholic University in San Diego, Mahatma Gandhi's grandson, came and gave a talk. And his grandson shared a story which has really influenced me. And some of you have heard this story before. And it's the story of a man walking along the beach with his son. And as he's walking along the beach with his son is picking up these starfish and he's throwing the starfish into the ocean. So the father says to the son, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Well, I'm picking up these starfish and throwing them into the ocean." And the father says, "Yeah, I can see that, son, but why are you doing it?" And he says, "Well, Dad, the sun is so hot and the tide has gone in. These starfish are dying." And the father says, "Yes, son, but there's thousands of starfish. What you do doesn't make a difference." And the little boy picks up a starfish and he shows it to his father and he says, "It'll make a difference to this one. It'll make a difference to this one." The power of one. That starfish could easily be the next Malala, the woman from Pakistan that was shot in the face and stands up for women's rights. Or Greta from Norway that tells us about how our generation has blown it on the environment. I don't remember the woman's name. What was the woman's name that spoke at President Biden's inauguration? What's her name? Yeah, she's a poet. Well, she was fantastic. So people like that. That generation, there's many of you that generation here. That's what gives me hope. That's what gives me being an advisor on certain issues to President Obama. And I'll never forget being with him, his wife, and the things that he was trying to do. It's no coincidence by any means, any stretch of the imagination, that after Obama, we had what happened right after him. Remember that more than 50 million people that could vote. to not vote. We need to participate because our vote is our voice. It's not the only voice, but it's an important voice. So in California, we had a recall election, and it was shut down, and it was the same type of rhetoric. You know, the way they were saying stuff about Governor Newsom. Nobody is perfect. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I'm independent. But what I will do is I'll vote. And I tell people how important it is to vote. We are very active with the children, with the migrant children. So we go to the shelters in Tijuana and San Diego and Mexicali to make sure that those children are okay. These are asylum seekers, and most of them can't get in. That's why they're in shelters in Tijuana and Mexicali, otherwise they'd be here. And we want to make sure that we give them attention, and we say they have dance sessions to release their stress. The woman that leads those dance sessions is our vice president, Ari Navar, and she comes from Iran. And she was an unaccompanied minor. When she was just a kid, she came to the United States. Her mom was able to get a visa for her, so she came by herself. And she ended up in San Diego, and she would do these dance type of sessions with Iraqi families. The reason she left Iran was because Iran and Iraq were at war, and she would have been killed. So she needed to find a safe place. So she goes to San Diego eventually, and then when the caravan started coming from Central America mostly, she went down to Tijuana to help these folks. And it was so important because the reason people travel in caravans is for safety. There's been caravans since the beginning of time. The 3 ships that came from Europe, that was a caravan. The people that came across the United States from Oklahoma on their stagecoaches, those were caravans. Well, these caravans are also people fleeing because they want to be able to live. And most people that are looking for a better life do not come to the United States or do not want to come to the United States. There's 250 million undocumented people in the world today, according to the United Nations. U.S. has 10 million. Most would much rather go to other countries, and they do. We should have more humane policies, all of us. Because there's 2 countries that are at fault with all of this that is taking place. There's the country where the people are leaving from. They need to do a better job to create jobs and so forth. And there's this country. Because the U.S. plays a big role. The U.S. plays a big role in why the people leave. The U.S. interference in the politics of other countries. We all saw what happened in just recently in Afghanistan. I assure you, Afghanistan did not want the Russians in there, and they didn't want the U.S. in there. They never asked for that. But look what happened. Look what happened. Vietnam, El Salvador. It's happened over and over. The U.S. needs to stay out of those countries. The U.S. is a great country. There's 200 great countries in the world. That's how many countries there are, 200. And all of them are great. There's no greater country than another. That's a bunch of nonsense. There's countries that are more powerful, more military, more money, etc. So what happens is, when I go and preach and at churches and so forth, and I do that on a regular basis, I'll be doing that on Sunday. Actually here in New Jersey, tomorrow I'll be speaking to another group in New York. I tell them about practice what we preach about loving your neighbor. Loving your neighbor in actions, not just in words. With the Haitians, we're heading over to that Del Rio, Texas border to make sure that the people are okay. With the people from Afghanistan, we're working very closely with them. Because they're forced out of there, and if they stay there, maybe the women won't be able to go to school or even have any type of a decent life. So it's important for all of us to help all of us, right? So Gente Unida is all about that. It's all about love, and I'm just delighted to be invited here once again. So I have some flyers and so forth. So if you want to get more information about us, my email, phone number, and the Gente Unida is right on here. And we do have these sessions with the migrant children. We have a program right now called Operation Teddy Bear, where we collect teddy bears and give them to the kids. Everybody likes a teddy bear, even if you're an adult. So we take them to the shelters and give them to them. We have dance therapy. We have music therapy. We do a drum circle, and it calms you down a bit. We have dance, music, and art therapy. We have people painting. All of those things take your mind in another place. And it's important to be distracted and to let people know that they are loved, and we're raising money. We're always asking for help because we are a non-profit 501c3, and we're all volunteers. So I got this book. And on this book here, we asked for a $25 donation. And in it, it has several of our stories, including the story of when I convinced the Border Patrol to open up the door between the United States and Mexico 6 different times. And when they opened up that door, sometimes children hug their parents for the first time. Many of you might have seen that on the news. We did that 6 times. We also have a program where we go to a cemetery where there's, here's a little girl hugging her dad for the first time. We also have a program where we go to a cemetery near San Diego where there's 500 unidentified migrants buried there. So we go there to pay homage. We're not a religious group, we're a faith-based group. So we'll put crosses in the Christian tradition, stones in the Jewish tradition, release butterflies in the Buddhist tradition. The thing is to recognize these people, say their name, that type of thing. So yeah, there's a lot you can do, and we'd love to have you join us. We have a lot of groups that come down to San Diego. We just had 50 doctors from UCLA join us about 2 months ago. And we went to the desert and put water, and they saw the wall. That wall, which is between the United States and Mexico, covers 1/3 of the border. And this was started in 1994. There hasn't been any additions to the wall. I know that Trump said he was going to add more, and he didn't add anything. He made parts of the wall taller, that's all. But that wall has cost more than 12,000 lives. 12,000 people have died because of that wall. So I'll tell you, even though there's 12,000 people, many of you are Latinos, I can almost guarantee that nobody in this room knows the name of one of those 12,000 people. 12,000 human beings. Let me tell you the name of one. Marco Antonio Villaseñor. A 5-year-old little boy that crossed with his dad. The only way he could. He crossed through the desert. As he crossed, he became very thirsty. So he asked his father for some water. And his father wouldn't give him any water. So he asked the next man and the next man. He asked 18 men for water. And neither of the 18 men would give this 5-year-old boy water. And why not? Those 18 men, they had already died. And Marco Antonio also died. We cannot allow this to continue. We need to have humane immigration policies. Both sides of the aisle have not done it correctly, and we should do it correctly. As a nation, as a people, if we're going to promote ourselves as a country of immigrants, let's live it. Because it's not happening right now. And it hasn't happened in a long time. So I ask that you get involved. I know you have an election coming up here in November. Get out there and vote. And those of you that can't vote because you're not 18 or don't have papers, you know people that can vote. Get them to go out there and vote. Join an organization. There's plenty of local organizations here. Your passion might be the environment or the elderly or ecology, whatever. Get involved. That's what I did. Because when I was younger, I was always in sports and so forth. But when I saw what was happening in North San Diego with people living in the canyons, that's how I started the Border Angel. Going there and ministering to them, giving them food and water. So amor, si se puede. Love, yes you can. And amor es una acción, no una palabra. It's an action, not just a word. And love has no borders. So with that, I want to thank you, and hopefully you might have some questions that I could answer. So thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
Este evento fue traído por Brookdale Community College y Sansone Junior Latino. Tu Sello Latino Media. Be connected to the Latino world.